Why do you not take a more active stance in telling your listeners about the effectiveness of the virtues of patience and tolerance when conducting a debate with people? This is important because in today's society we encounter people who argue based on feelings and propaganda, but why should we take what they say so personal? In my own experience, remaining calm when, for example, being called a racist and staying with my argument or maybe presenting it in a different way is more effective for actually changing people's minds than correcting their morality. I know that you have no responsibility over your audience's decisions, but I think it would be smart to show them a more effective way of getting this message of reason and truth across. That's from Fritz.
Fritz, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. So you think that you're a better persuader than I am when it comes to changing people's minds in the world?
No, I don't. But the thing I don't understand is your show is definitely based, or you
No, hang on. See, we have, sorry to interrupt you. We have to start with the facts. You wrote into me, and I'm not criticizing, I just want to get where we're starting from. You wrote in and you said, in my own experience, remaining calm when, for example, being called a racist and staying with my argument or maybe presenting it in a different way is more effective for actually changing people's minds, right? Now, you mean more effective than what I'm doing, right? Which is fine. I mean, maybe you've got great advice for me and I'm happy to hear it. But you do believe that what you do is more effective than what I do, right? Because that's what you wrote.
Yes, in short, if you want to say.
Okay, so see, we already have a problem because you already just denied what you just affirmed. I said to you, so you think you're better at convincing people than I am, and you said, no, I don't believe that. I read you back, and you say, okay, yes.
Yeah, well, you definitely have more experience than me, and you're with talking to people and all of that. But
do you think that I feel like trusting you at the moment when you've just contradicted yourself within 20 seconds of us starting a conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a messy question, I guess.
No, it wasn't messy at all. You said you were better than me at convincing people. You denied it. And then when I confronted you with the evidence, you then backtracked and confirmed. Now, you didn't apologize for getting things wrong, and you didn't, right? You're just trying to press on as if this didn't happen, which I don't want to do.
I can apologize. And I would, if you would let me, to give like a background of.
No, because there's no background. Listen, you wrote to me and said, Steph, Fritz, am better at convincing people than you are. And I said, so you think you're better at convincing people than I am? You said, no. I said, but that's what you wrote. You said, yes.
Well, maybe I was a little bit intimidated. So I said no in the start, and maybe I should have stuck with what I wrote and said yes.
What do you mean intimidated? I mean, if you write to me and say that you're better than me at something, hey, maybe you are. I've got no problem with that. I mean, if you've got great things to teach me, I'm happy to hear. But I don't see how you'd be intimidated by me repeating back to you something that you wrote. You understand? Like I'm not saying boo, Fritz. I'm not jumping out of the sofa at you in the dark. I'm repeating back to you what you wrote to me to clarify and make sure I understand where you're coming from. And now you say that you're intimidated because I quoted you back to you. Do you find yourself intimidated by yourself a lot?
Well, I was just I'm nervous to be on the show a little bit. You know, I'm 21. I know I've listened to you for a long time, and I know that you know your stuff, you know, so that's why I felt a little bit intimidated.
But see, if you're too nervous to hold to your position, or you're too nervous to understand what you wrote, how are we supposed to have a conversation? Right? If you're too nervous to, when Mike just read you, I can understand if you wrote this a while back ago. Mike just read your question, which you heard and understood. And if you're too nervous to understand what you just wrote to me and deny that you wrote it, then how are we supposed to have a conversation? I sympathize, but I know it can be intimidating or whatever. But if you're too nervous to have any honesty and integrity with me in the moment, I don't know how we're supposed to have a conversation, because you could then just deny things and change your mind and change your position without even telling me or acknowledging it. And then when I confront it on you, or I confront you on it, you could then say, well, I'm just nervous. And it's like, okay, I sympathize with that. But this is not a show for nervous people. If you're too nervous to have integrity in the conversation, then what you need to do is you need to go and figure out what makes you nervous and how you can have integrity despite being nervous, and then come back on the show so that we can have a conversation where you don't contradict yourself the very first time we start conversation and then blame it on nervousness rather than whatever else it might be. So if you're too nervous to be honest and have integrity, I don't know how we can have a conversation.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe my answer should have been I don't know, because I'm not really sure if I.
No. Your answer is not I don't know. Your answer is yes, Steph. I think I'm better at convincing people than you, because that's what I just wrote to you. I wrote to you that it's more effective. My way is more effective for actually changing people's minds rather than your way. So when I'm repeating back to you what you said, just to make sure that I'm understanding we're starting in the same place, and you deny what you just wrote to me, the correct answer to you saying that you're better than me, when I say, oh, you wrote that you're better than me, the correct answer is, yes, that's what I wrote, so that's what I mean, rather than, I don't know. Because I don't know if I'm talking to the Fritz who wrote the email or the Fritz who's here right now, who seems to be a little on the Fritz.
No, you're definitely talking to the Fritz who wrote the email.
Okay, good. So you think you're better, and this sounds confrontational, but it's not. You think you're better at convincing people or changing their minds than I am.
Yes, or at least I have some criticisms, which
sure, but we don't have criticisms of people who are doing things better than us, right? Usually. So okay, so now we're back to you. You said no, then you said yes, then you said you don't know. So now we're back to yes.
Yes,
you do think that you're better than me at convincing people.
Yes.
Okay, got it. What evidence do I have that this is true?
All right.
I mean, do you have a public, sorry, what I mean by that, do you have a public forum where you've shown this mastery? Because you said here privately, and anyone can say anything. I can say, Fritz, I'm the best singer that has ever been born. And at some point you might say, well, can I hear you sing? And I say, well, no, I only sing to myself privately. And you'd say, okay, well, I have no way to verify your claim. So right now, so far, you haven't been very good at changing my mind. Well, actually, I guess you have been, but just probably not in the direction that you want. So I'm questioning, since you've claimed expertise in an area that I have been working in for, oh gosh, let's see now, 34 years. And I have the biggest and most popular philosophy show in the world. We got millions of listeners. People are dying to call in. They've got to wait forever to get a conversation with me. And I get emails every day, many emails about people whose minds I've changed. I know the influence that I have on people. So I have public evidence of my effectiveness in changing people's minds in some of the most controversial topics in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not better than me, but it does mean that when you say, well, you're 21 and you're nervous, that you are going to have a challenge at your young age, right? You've got a couple of years experience in changing people's minds. I have 34 years experience since I started philosophy when I was 16. I'm now 50. 10 years in a public forum, thousands of hours of debating and having conversations with people and working to change their mind. I've got thousands and thousands of shows, and I've been on other people's shows, had debates. So I'm very experienced. And I'm very good at what I do. There's lots of things I'm not great at, but I'm very good at this. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is that when you come up to me at the ripe old age of 21, you come up to somebody who is a master persuader, somebody who's really, really good at engaging people and helping them to grow and learn and change their minds. And you tell me, Steph, you're doing it wrong. I'm just going to tell you, I want to be honest about my perspective so that you understand the challenges that lie ahead. When you at 21 come to me at 50, who's been doing this for 34 years, and you've maybe been doing it for a couple of years, and privately. See, when you do it privately, it's very different than doing it publicly. When you do it privately, you're doing it with people you already have a relationship with, which means that it's much less likely to escalate because you already have investment in the relationship. So they're much more likely to agree with you or to be conciliatory or whatever. The stakes are very low. Right, because if I get my way, the immediate self-interest of millions and millions of people are going to be directly threatened. It's a very high stakes game, so there's going to be a lot of conflict, a lot of problems. So if you come to me at 21 and say, Steph, I've been doing this for a couple of years, only privately with friends and family. You've been doing it in the world for 34 years as a public intellectual for a decade. You've got thousands of shows. You've got decades more experience than I do, but you're doing it wrong. I'm just telling you, It's a challenge to hear that. It doesn't mean you still may be. You may be the ultimate ninja. You may be way better at me than this. But what I want to know is, do you have any proof that you're really good at something you claim you're good at, when so far the evidence doesn't seem to support it?
All right. It is possible, even though you have that many years of experience, to sometimes get carried away. And
what does carried away mean?
I'm not like
sorry, I don't know what the word, sorry to interrupt. I don't know what the phrase carried away means.
Well, I'm about to explain it.
But what you should do is explain it before you use a somewhat inflammatory phrase, because carried away means that I'm not in control of myself. Don't have any mastery of my emotions. I don't have your 21-year-old highly nervous maturity. So if you use a kind of insulting phrase, generally it's better to not use an inflammatory phrase, but to explain yourself ahead of time, because otherwise it just annoys people. Or maybe this is an example of how good you are at changing people's minds. But sorry, go ahead.
It's really basic when you talk to someone and have a debate with someone, to, even if they don't change their mind right there and then in the conversation, to give them respect. And even if they don't change their mind right there and then in the conversation, they might go home and they might think about it, and they're not going to be enraged or feel attacked.
Fritz.
When they feel attacked.
Fritz, yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to ask you something. something. I don't know if you heard what you said. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
I have a quote.
It's very passive aggressive. So you said, in a debate, it's very basic. It's very basic. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no, I'm still talking. It's you said it's very basic. So what you're doing is you're saying to me at the ripe old age of 21, you're saying to somebody who's been doing this thousands of times publicly for decades, or at least a decade publicly, and many times before that. And I've been trained in debating, and I've been trained in philosophy, and I've been trained in argumentation and so on, and trained in logic. You're saying, Steph, it's very basic what you need to do. And then you say it's important to treat people with respect.
Yes.
To change their minds. So far, you've accused me of getting carried away, which is a negative. Obviously, nobody ever says anything positive. When it comes to intellectual rigor, getting carried away is a bad thing. So you've already insulted me by saying I get carried away. And then you further insulted me by saying that I'm missing something very basic in exactly what I've dedicated my life to. And then you say it's really important to treat people with respect. How are you treating me with respect? Just out of curiosity, because what you're saying is pretty inflammatory. You understand?
Yes, it is a criticism, and I think it is a concerning criticism. And that's
no, but you said you have to treat people with respect, and you're kind of insulting me. How is that treating me with respect? Shouldn't you be following the rules that you think I should be following, or are those rules only for me and not for you?
How can I tell you to treat people? How can I tell you that in another way? There's only one way of telling you that. Because
what do you mean? There's only one way to tell me what?
That I believe that sometimes you get carried away and you lose the respect for your opposition.
Well, I think one way to do it would be if you feel that, or if you believe that that it's important to treat people with respect in order to change their minds, then you should treat me with respect in order to change my mind. See, that's what I'm talking about. How should you convince me to treat people with respect, assuming that I'm not? Well, the first thing you would do is follow your own advice. Because you see, if you're not taking your advice, Fritz, I have no fucking clue why I should.
That's another point. It's not about taking things so personally. I feel like you also take things very personally, like you're doing right now. And I feel like it clouds you. Like I have a quote right here I wanna give.
Oh no. Let's just deal with the conversation we're having right now. We don't need anything else in the conversation to deal with this. Okay, so then you say I take things personally, right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that you seem to forget that you shouldn't be so involved to the point where you stop respecting other human beings, because then you kind of create these teams. You're always saying don't create teams, but that's exactly kind of what you're doing.
I have no idea, but you think that I seem to forget. What do I seem to forget? I seem to forget to treat people with respect. Yes. I haven't insulted you.
No,
But you for now come up with 4 or 5 very negative and unsubstantiated negative things about me, right?
Yes.
I miss very basic things. I don't treat people with respect. I take things too personally. I escalate. I mean, these are all. Oh, and I'm forgetful, and like these are all negative things to say about me. You haven't proven any of them. Now, when someone says negative things about me without proof, that's called an insult. Now, you can say to me, well, Steph, you shouldn't take insults personally. Now, I'm not taking insults personally like you're saying something true about me. What bothers me in this conversation is not the negative stuff that you said about me. I mean, you've got no proof for it, doesn't matter, right? You're just saying stuff, right? What bothers me is that you are not following your own advice, which is to treat people respectfully.
Well, I don't think saying that, like telling you to treat people with respect, is not respectful from my side, because
No. You're not understanding what you're doing. Maybe you're completely blind to it. I don't know. In which case, you just need to listen back to this and take some notes, because you seem to have the self-reflection skills of your average vampire. But what I mean is that when you say, I'm missing very basic things, Steph, you're missing very basic things, you escalate, you don't treat people with respect, you take things too personally, you're forgetful, and the other things that you've said that are sort of insults, right? They're not insults if they're true, like if you've got lots of evidence. And it's not the fact that you're insulting me that bothers me. What bothers me is that you're being completely hypocritical according to the values that you are proposing I follow. You're standing in front of me, shoveling cheesecake in your mouth, saying, Steph, you should never eat cheesecake, and no one ever should because it's poison.
I don't. Did you want me to say it in a nicer way, like Steph? I don't.
That's your value. You're the one saying you change people's minds by treating them nicely. Don't now you're getting even more passive aggressive, like I'm some sort of bully, and I'm saying, oh, you want me to do it this way? Fritz, these are your values. This is what you said people should do to change their minds, and you're not doing any of it.
I'm not telling you to treat people nicely. I'm not. I am like, I don't treat people nicely too in debates, but with respect, there's a difference, and I have evidence, and I have a quote. If you would let me read it from you.
Sure for it.
All right, it's in the video where it was about the Muslim ban, which I too think is ridiculous. But anyways, here's the quote. It was after you talked about people going on Facebook and like just tweeting about this Muslim ban, and then you said, do you have any capacity to look at yourself in the mirror, to see yourself, to see what you have become? Base echo chambers of in-group preference from hell, no reasoning, no principles, no fact. I have less respect for these people than I do for simians. What is
Right.
that, Steph? What is that? Is that giving respect to your opposition? If I would like to inform my friend by sending you that video, what's the point of your video? If your point of your show is to spread reason and evidence, then that should be your main concern. You in your videos, you have to take those things into account. That if I would want to send that video to a friend, then it will be easier for them to see the truth and truth and evidence, if they're not like disrespected in a way like that, because it takes time to learn how to think. It takes time to learn how to think, and it's not easy, so we have to be above the left, we have to be above the opposition, we have to not say things like that.
Why?
Because it will help them see truth and evidence. It will easier help them come to see science and come to accept facts and reason and truth.
Why do you think that's true? How do you know that that's true?
Because it's like when you say something like that in the start of a video.
No, I didn't say that right at the start.
It was like at the 6 minute. You had this little rant before you went to the facts, which I enjoy those rants actually. Like for me, they don't matter too much, but my main point there is that the most effective way of spreading truth and evidence is to not include those comments, to be impeccable with your words.
How do you know? How do you know that to be true? You've got a hypothesis, I agree, but how do you know that to be true? You're saying it like it's somehow established. I've got a whole video called The Death of Reason, where I talk about people's emotional barriers to rationality. And so I have studied this quite extensively, how to change people's minds. So I'm just curious, if you have access to information that I don't, I am curious if you have any sources for your assertion that you're making.
I just have my personal experience. That's the thing. I am in a very
and do you think that the plural of your personal experience is somehow objective fact or data? Because your personal experience, you talk about science, right? And reason and evidence. You understand that your personal experience is not scientific and is not empirical, right? It's not reproducible because it's only your personal experience. So I'm not sure exactly how you get to lecture me about science when the only data set you have to bring to the table is unverified personal experience. I saw a ghost. Do you believe me?
A lot of scientists, Steph, it says that science is supposed to be objective. We are not supposed to judge what is going on. We're supposed to just say the truth and evidence. And
I'm not a scientist. I don't understand. I'm not a scientist.
Well,
I don't. Scientists don't deal with moral questions fundamentally. They don't deal with the salvation or death of Western civilization. They don't deal with that which saves the world and everything that's perfect, wonderful, and valuable, and rational, and moral, and good in it, or not. They are dealing with equations and physical properties and matter and energy. So I'm not sure how the supposed dispassionate nature of science ties into what I do, which is essentially a public moralist.
Yeah, you're not a scientist. You can do whatever the hell you want to do, and on your show too, on your videos too, you can speak. It's your show, But it's.
Do you know how many people have watched that Muslim Ben show?
Like 250,000, like around there, maybe.
No, it's if you include the podcast downloads, it's probably about 1 million.
And maybe it could be 2 million.
Well, you see, but then you need to show me, because this idea that I'm running the largest and most successful philosophy show, but you at the age of 21 know how to make it even bigger and better, just go make one bigger and better. I mean, the idea that I'm going to take advice from, do you have any public videos that you've made?
No, I don't.
So you have no experience engaging with the public in the realm of ideas, right? None whatsoever.
No, I'm getting into it right now, I guess.
No. You have no experience whatsoever about how to engage the public in the realm of ideas, right? Zero.
It's correct, I guess.
Do you think that with zero experience, where do you get off telling me how to do my job that I've been doing for 34 years and 10 years publicly with zero experience? You could be right. I'm just, do you understand from where I'm standing? It's rather a startling claim to be on the receiving end of. You've got zero experience. You're bringing up a show that has infinity more views than you've achieved in your 21 years. And you're telling me how I could get to 2 million when you haven't even gotten to 1.
Yeah, I have no internet show, but I grew up watching you. If that counts.
No, and I appreciate that, and And I certainly don't mind being reminded at all of how to do things better. And I've got shows about the limitations of reason. I've got shows about the joy of anger. And I've also got a lot of empirical evidence that anger works really, really well in the realm of public ideas. Do you know how I know that? Because the left has been using abuse and escalation and aggression and abuse and escalation and aggression, and now, and not just now, but in the past, outright physical violence and intimidation to get their way. So now we can say, well, we're going to take the high ground and we're never going to descend to their level, which is kind of what conservatives and Republicans and people on the right, not that I'm on the right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They have been trying this approach of taking the high road and speak dispassionately about the data and so on for the past 150 years. And you know what's happened? Communism, fascism, National Socialism, totalitarianism, the rise of political correctness, the rise of leftism, the swamping of the economy, the flooding of third world migrants. It has been a complete clusterfuck of near biblical proportions, this rising above and being nice about things. It could be that you just don't want to get involved in the fight. And I understand that, and I respect that. I mean, I shouldn't say I respect that. I understand that, and I accept that. But the idea that we just speak dispassionately like a robot about facts and evidence, and somehow we're going to win the battle of ideas, I'd like to know what evidence you have for that, other than some completely unverifiable personal experience that I don't actually believe.
Yeah, maybe, you know, the world of like politics and like the ideas and stuff like that is just way more nastier than like I ever could imagine, you know. But like just like there's so many leftists. I study sociology, you know, like I have a like bunch of leftists in my class university right now. And it's just like I watch your videos, and like the reason why I call in is because I send them a video and they can't take it, you know what I mean? And
well, but you wouldn't start off by sending them a video where I'm railing against an incredibly dangerous lie being put out by the left, right? Like this Muslim ban thing is an incredibly dangerous lie.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, lives could hang in the balance, right? If someone gets through this who otherwise would have been prevented, and they go shooting up, say, a gay nightclub in Florida, where dozens and dozens of people could get murdered, yeah, that's kind of high stakes business, right? So I'm acutely aware of that. And that's why I speak so passionately about people who post and clutter up the public sphere by repeating lies with no personal examination and creating an echo chamber that can escalate to cause the deaths of many, many, many people. I mean, just think of one of these lunatics who could get through this ban that I guess tonight was at least temporarily overturned by the slightly left-leaning Ninth Circuit. But yeah, I mean, what was it, 86 people or so killed in France by one of these truck-driving lunatics. It is a high-stakes business, and the left have been winning. Now, one of the things that you do when you're losing is you look at who's winning, and you kind of do what they do. You have to, otherwise you just lose. You just keep losing, and you may go down with dignity, but you're still going down. And the Western civilization, as I see it, is far too important for white gloved squeamishness when it comes to the kind of verbal tussles that win. So, what are you hoping to do with the sociology degree?
I just want to get one more thing. Let me see here.
What, are you looking something up? No, I'm just curious. What are you going to do with your sociology? What do you want to do with your sociology degree?
Well, it's, you know, a bachelor is worthless basically, so I'm going to get a master's and maybe become a researcher.
What do you mean?
Researching all kinds of social phenomena.
But you're not. I assume you're not on the left, right?
No, I agree very much with what you say, and yeah, basically. So I'm not on the left. I'm not on the right. Yeah.
Do you want to spend the rest of your life around leftists? Because isn't that kind of what sociology is going to become for you? I mean, it already is to a large degree, right?
Look, this is the difference between you and me. Like, it doesn't bother me too much because it's not like I don't see them as these like blood-sucking creatures. You know what I mean? Like, they might not have learned to think, you know, but that doesn't mean, you know, they're not human. And
well, when did I ever say they weren't human? I mean, I understand biology.
Well, you said you had respect for monkeys more than the left, and many of those people on the left it's not there like consciously, like these things are external like ideas, and they take them as part of their personality, right? And when you haven't learned how to think, those things stay with your personality, you know.
Well, let's put it this way. There are no simians that I know of that are posting extremely dangerous lies about a particular policy that can get people killed. And that's what I mean, in that a simian isn't actually going to do anything to harm Western civilization, but people who confidently post very, very strongly worded and like the Trump's, what's called the quote Muslim ban, I want to get into debate about the contents and all of that, is the left was posting about it very strongly.
Yeah,
You know, that it's racist, that it's xenophobic, that it's Islamophobic, they were very, very strong about this. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone who reposted it, but you know, if you're going to repost extremely foundational moral condemnations, you really should have some idea what you're talking about. It's highly irresponsible to get things wrong in the realm of, you know, really foundational moral questions. And the left was mischaracterizing as a whole this whole process, that it was some sort of Muslim ban. This is inflammatory. And do you know why? Because if you call it a Muslim ban, you're going to make some Muslims, very upset by that characterization. And majority of Muslims, of course, very peaceful, but, you know, there are a few who might escalate from there. So calling it a Muslim ban is creating a clash of cultures and a clash of civilizations, which is exactly what ISIS wants, right? ISIS wants to radicalize the moderate Muslims. So people who are out there calling it a Muslim ban are really poking at the roots of massive social conflict. And yeah, it's extremely dangerous to do that. Where that leads is to a not good place at all. I think people have to take responsibility for that. Now, what I do is sometimes gentle and sometimes it's not. I have always said that I treat people the best I can the first time I meet them, and after that, I treat them the way that they treat me. And having been on the receiving end of some leftist criticism, I know how they play. And I am not, you know, I mean, if somebody turns a chess game into a boxing match, I'm not going to get pummeled while I'm attempting to move my pawn.
Like, for example, I understand how disgusting it is, for example, that Obama like selected these countries and Obama did all these drone strikes, and the left, they don't say anything, you know. I know how disgusting it is that they don't say anything then, and then now they just go crazy on Trump, you know. But there is a way to speak, you can be enraged, you can be passionate, and I love it when you are those things without being disrespectful. You can have those great speeches, you know, like you usually do. When you have.
So hang on, do you find that the left is more disrespectful or me?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what the left does. That's my point. It doesn't matter. Like,
No. No, it does matter, Fritz, because if you're going to have a universal value that you want to impose on me called be respectful,
mm-hmm.
then I need to know how you impose it on others. Because if you're going to make up the supposedly universal value and only apply it to me, I'm going to tell you to take a long walk off a short pier. I don't play that game. I don't play that game of, Steph, there are these higher moral standards that only apply to you, but everyone else gets off scot-free. Right? That's a horrible manipulation. If you have a standard called treat people with respect, then I want to know how you apply it to the left. And if you say, well, I don't apply it to the left because they're not subject to my standards, then I know it's not a universal standard that you're applying consistently. And if you say, well, you see, the left is totally hypocritical by holding Obama to one standard and holding Trump to another standard that's much higher, and they don't apply these standards to Obama, but they apply them to Trump, and that's horrible, that's hypocritical. Well, Fritz, it's exactly what you're doing. Exactly what you're doing. You're holding me to this higher standard and you're excusing the left completely. That's just cowardly. I'm the more reasonable person. You know that. So you're calling in to lecture me about something. You know I'm not going to get really mad at you. You know I'm not going to go out and trash you publicly. You know I'm not going to try and get you fired. You know I'm not going to try and get you in trouble with your employer. You know all of that. So you're coming in and lecturing me about respect, but you're avoiding the left. And you say, well, I don't want to apply those standards to the left. Why do I get the special focus of Fritz's high moral standards? Why the hell don't you apply them to the left if they're so universal? And I think it's pretty clear that the left is a little bit more aggressive in these areas than anything I could even conceive of. I mean, they're out there punching people who want to go see Milo speak, for heaven's sakes. I just had these people on the show. Are you out there lecturing them about treating people with respect when they're out there encouraging attacks upon people who are simply there to exercise their right of free speech and peaceful assembly? When you've got the mainstream media out there attacking and encouraging and fomenting riots against people who have different opinions? Why are you picking on me rather than the people who are actually fomenting real, direct violence against the innocent? Or is it just me who gets the benefit of your high moral standards?
Because like I said in the start, it's your show. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like, you can talk whatever the hell you want. So I'm not imposing anything on you. I'm saying that I believe that it would be better and a more efficient way to spread reason and truth, to still be, passionate, still be angry, but to not be disrespectful. It's about the
Okay,
most.
Fritz, we went through this already. We went through this already. Steph asked you, are you holding the left to account with these high standards that you're imposing? Or is it just Steph that's being held to those standards? That was the question. We went through the previous thing before. So answer the question. Are you holding other people on the left to these standards, or are you just holding people to the right, or Steph, to these standards?
Well, I don't think I'm holding anyone to these standards.
Fritz, I don't think you're cut out for this kind of conflict. You don't want to criticize the left because the left can be very vicious. You want to criticize me because I'm not. I mean, I'm hot-tempered at times and all that, but I've got no problem with that philosophically. But if disrespect is your issue, you should be out there lecturing the left, not me, right? But you're not doing that.
But I don't care if people are disrespectful. That's not what it's about. Sorry? I don't care if people are disrespectful.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next caller because you don't care whether people are disrespectful. So this whole thing has been a complete waste of time because you don't care about this at all. You've just got some weird emotional thing where you like to talk about this stuff when it has no value to you whatsoever. You don't care whether people are disrespectful, but somehow I shouldn't be disrespectful. What a bunch of nonsense. I'm sorry you're not cut out for this kind of fight. I guess you got to go back to the lab and study stuff rather than join us in changing the world. I wish you would, but I don't think you ever will. Thanks a lot for the call. Let's move on to the next caller.
Steph, before we move on to the next caller, if you would let me talk and you don't forget to, I know this is really basic, but if you could go on one of your little rants, I'd be curious what you have to say about patience and tolerance as a virtue. Do you think patience is a virtue?
Do I think patience I think that you pay like with like. I think if people deliver you honest goods, you give them honest money. And I think if people deliver you shoddy goods, you don't give them the money. You return the goods. If people pay you with counterfeit money, you don't deliver the goods. It's an honest exchange. So if people treat me with respect, then I will treat them with respect. And I will treat people with respect the first time I meet them. But I've been dealing with the left for 34 years, so I think I know a little bit about them here and there. And so I don't think that patience and tolerance abstracted or any kind of virtue at all. Patience and tolerance is a big white flag by which you surrender your balls to the combine harvester of more aggressive and sociopathic people. I do not think it's a virtue at all. I think we want justice and honesty in our dealings with people. And if you're treated with dignity and respect, then I think it's fair to return that to the people that you're dealing with, absent fundamental differences in values, right? I mean, the old dignity and respect thing, if they want you thrown in jail for exercising your right of free speech, then it doesn't matter how nicely they advocate that position, your ass could still hit a jail cell for speaking your mind peacefully. So no, I think that like this sort of respect as an abstract virtue and treating people nicely as an abstract virtue is just horrendous. It's a ridiculous and horrible standard, and it's a cloak for cowardice. It is instilled by the left, right? It's instilled by the left. Oh, tolerance. Oh, virtue. Oh, love. Love trumps hate. Ugh. They dig all of that stuff in so that they can further prey upon you. They must further prey upon you. They're basically saying, well, you got to pay all your debts, no matter what currency we pay you with. You've got to send us the goods. Even if we give you a piece of toilet paper with the word 100 written on it and say it's a $100 bill, you've got to ship us the goods no matter what. You've got to treat us with tolerance and virtue and respect and dignity. These are just buzzwords that are designed to have you disconnect yourself from your passions and end up surrendering because you're scared and because you got a rule which says you can't get passionate, you can't get assertive, you can't get outraged and upset and focused, and you can't fight for what you value, and you can't fight for what you believe in because you've got to be like, Spock, you gotta drug yourself with this mantra, dignity, respect, love, dignity, respect, love. No, that has been going on for far too long. I don't advocate violence. No initiation of the use of force. Self-defense is fine. No initiation of the use of force. But strong words, passionately delivered, morally precise, civilization-saving language, moderation in the defense of virtue is a vice. Moderation in the defense of virtue is a vice. And when people come on and tell me, well, you got to treat people with dignity and respect, and I say, okay, why am I on your list? How many people did you go through the list of lecturing people about this before you came to me? Have you gone to the left? Have you gone to the black-clad protesters out there in California? Have you gone to the people in the Women's March? How many people have you gone to? Have you gone to the people who write hit pieces about my friends in the newspapers and say, well, you got to treat people with dignity and respect? How do you get to me on the list? Where am I in your priority of people treating other people badly for no reason? And nobody has an answer, of course, because there is no answer other than, Steph, you're the reasonable one, so I'm going to lecture you. And you know who sent Fritz to me? It wasn't Fritz. It may have been his mom. I'll tell you who sent Fritz to me. His coworkers. Because you see, Fritz doesn't want to have a confrontation. He wants to be confrontational, but he doesn't want to have a confrontation. Those two different things, which is why he sends in this email. I'm 21 and I want to tell you, Steph, how you should communicate with people in the world, even though you've got hundreds of millions of views and downloads. And then I say, okay, so this is what you're saying. No. Okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes. He wants to, right? So he doesn't want to have confrontations, but he wants to change people's minds. So he's just invented this fog called dignity and respect and whatever it is, right? So that, and he wants me to change my tone so that he can send my videos to the people he works with. And so that he doesn't get in any trouble, right? He wants me to change my tone, which has been enormously successful. He wants me to change my tone so that he has stuff to send to people that doesn't get him in trouble. Now, my question is, why bring me up at all, Fritz? Why? Why bother? You don't need to. You can take my arguments. You can strip out all the stuff you find objectionable, all the tone and whatever, and you could just bring the arguments. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants me to be the proxy. He doesn't want to get into any trouble with his coworkers. So he wants to send me as a proxy, but not in any way that might upset them. Why is he so worried about them being upset? Surely they're going to treat him with dignity and respect, or me with dignity and respect, and all that. And of course, he wasn't treating me with dignity and respect at all. I mean, kind of insulting and insinuating. Steph, you mustn't judge others. I'm going to judge you badly for judging. It's all nonsense. But no. I said this before. Enough of the niceness that loses. It's too important for this Victorian Jane Austen sliced cucumber sandwiches and white gloves etiquette. I'm sorry, it's a street fight, and I'm going to stay on the verbal side of the street fight because that's my area of expertise. But it is a street fight, and it is an epistemological street fight that is going on at the moment. It is a street fight around basic values, and if you don't have any adrenaline in a street fight, if your heart is not pumping a mile a minute in a street fight, if you got no fight or flight in a street fight, you're going to lose.
That was great stuff, but I still think it'd be better if you completely falsified your emotional experience and said that you had respect for people that you don't have respect for. I think that would be great. I have no evidence for it, but yet I think it would be great, and therefore you should do it. Moving on to the next caller, we have...
There's nothing like lying to people about your entire emotional experience to convince them of the validity of your position. Okay, go on.